Happy Monday, girlfriends. Happy Monday. Happy money making Monday. I hope you guys had an amazing day. I hope that you were able to crush those money goals on this super duper Monday. I am back as promised to circle back around with our topic that we were not able to have for the month of July, and which was our number 7 virtual meetup. And in during that time, we were going to talk about when life happens. Okay, so I got this cough, but I got something to drink today. Yesterday, I was struggling and I didn't have any water in here. And that is so not like me. I usually try to have water in here to try to help me. So when I start having that little dry spell. So today, we want to go ahead and get into it. We want to talk about when life happens. I'm going to try not to go too long because when I prepare for our meetups, I put a lot of effort into it because I really try to come up with content that's going to help each of us in our journey of manifesting and completing our goals. I'm not going to try to go as long as I went yesterday. So hopefully we can get through this in about 30 minutes because I know your time is valuable. And I know that a lot of people just don't have 60 minutes to give to a video, and so I'm going to be mindful of that today. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. When life happens, are you in that moment right now where you may feel like, man, life is happening and I don't like how this is feeling? We know that when life happens, it's really tough. And life is really tough when we are dealing with a when life happens moment. That means we are dealing with something that is very uncomfortable. And as much as we hate to admit it, when life happens, that's one of those moments when we don't have any control over the things that are happening in our lives. Most days we have a general idea of what to expect, don't we? We know that we're going to get up. We know we're going to get up at a certain time. We pretty much have it outlined what we're going to do that day. We kind of know what to expect, or at least we've planned what we expect to happen each day. But there's almost always something that throws a wrench into things, right? And sometimes no matter how well we think that we are planning or that we have planned, no matter how detailed we feel we were in our plans, something just tends to come out of left field on us. Something tends to come at us. And I mean, we just did not see it coming. We did not receive any signs or symptoms that it was going to come. And it's in those moments that we feel like we've been gut punched, right? We feel like, I gotta go sit down. A lot of times when people are gonna give you some bad news, they'll tell you, before they give you the bad news, they'll be like, they'll suggest that you take a seat. Why don't you have a seat? And then most people are like, no, I'm gonna stand up. And when a person tell you to take a seat, that is a warning right there that you probably are about to receive some bad news or one of those when life happened moments. So what does it mean when life happens? It means you having feelings of losing control of the situation you are in. Feeling like you are just barely treading water. Feeling like, oh my gosh, if something don't shift, I am going to drown because I am holding on by a thread. You've heard that phrase before, right? When life happens, it's easy to become overwhelmed, isn't it? And I mean, it doesn't take long to become overwhelmed when you're dealing with when life happens. I mean, most of the time that feeling of being overwhelmed, it comes real quick. And a lot of times when we feel overwhelmed, it begins to affect us physically, doesn't it? It's like all that energy and strength that we had before we heard the bad news or the when life happens shows up. It's like we were doing pretty good, feeling pretty good, but sometimes some news and some when life happened moments have a way of just instantly draining all the energy that we have. And each of us has a when life happens profile of how we typically navigate when life happens. Do you know that you have a profile? There is a certain pattern that you typically retreat to when you are dealing with a when life happens moment. And only you know what that is, and maybe your close family know what your pattern is of when you're dealing with something that is very, very overwhelming. Like I say, you'll lose energy. Some people, they withdraw from family and friends. But the purpose of this topic as it relates to us as goal friends is how to navigate through when life happens so that it doesn't cause us to quit on our goals. Because typically some folks, when life happens in their profile, they quit. And we don't want to quit. We may have to pause, but we're not going to quit. Okay, the goal friends over here, we don't quit. We pause when necessary, but we are not going to, we're not going to throw in the towel. So how do you deal with life when life happens? How do excuse me, how do you deal with it? Or how do you think you will deal with it when it does happen? Because I know there may be some folks may not be experiencing a when life happened moment. And so this is something to think about, because if you have not already built up your arsenal of how you deal with when life happens, it could impact your goals and not in a good way. And we don't want that to happen, because this is the month of August and many of us have already put in so much work as it relates to our goals, and we are too close to the end of the year to be giving up now, right? So we don't want to do that. And so the purpose of the topic for July was to basically encourage us, you know, life is going to happen, and how is that going to impact your goals? Because we've seen how some people, they don't do so well when life happens. And we don't want that to be among us. I know we're human, but we've got to develop even a set of goals as it relates to, these are my goals and this is my plan of how I'm going to deal with when life happens. Because we just never know when it's going to show up. Now, there are two types of happenings. There are those happenings that are planned. These are great, right? Because these are things that we planned. And so we are anticipating these type of happenings, occurring. For example, let's say you're going on vacation for 2 weeks, but things still have to get done while you are away. Okay, so you know that even though you're on vacation for 2 weeks, it's not like somebody is springing on you that you've got to get this work done while you are away. You know it before you go. And so therefore you can make arrangements to address the need for the work to get done. And then another example, let's say you may have family coming in from out of town. And even though we know hanging out with family from out of town can be so much fun, but in a lot of cases, it means that you're going to have to say no to some other things that you have on most of us have an endless to-do list. And so that are examples of planned happenings. We know we have something planned, but it also means having to address another problem in the process, and we are aware of it in advance. Most of us do pretty good with planned happenings. It is the unplanned life happenings that trip some of us up, that cause some of us to throw in the towel as it relates to our goals, that cause some of us to go into a dark place that we end up taking an unusual amount of time to recover from. Let's give some examples of unplanned life happenings. For example, let's say you wake up late, and when you know how that is, sometimes you wake up late during the week, and it causes you to rush in the morning. You end up getting to work late, and then you end up missing a conference call, or you end up missing a client conference call because you unexpectedly woke up late. It was something that was unplanned. You didn't plan on oversleeping. But how many of us have experienced that? It seems like the rest of your day, it seems like you're fighting to catch up. That is not a good feeling. That is an example of an unplanned life happening. Or another example is, let's say you're, excuse me, you're at work and a new deadline ends up being dropped on your desk. And that deadline ends up being a shorter time frame than you had originally anticipated. And so that creates overwhelm. That creates stress. That creates anxiety and everything when it's unplanned. And even in unplanned situations, we can overcome. We can keep the momentum going. We may have to slow it down a little bit. We may have to put it on pause a little bit, but we are not going to stop. And one thing about living on this earth as a human, we are going to have some unplanned life happenings. We are going to have some when life happen moments. And as a result, we've got to learn how to develop a new muscle as it relates to accomplishing goals. And that muscle is how to keep going when the unplanned manifests and pops up and gut punches us and throws a wrench at us. Because I'm here to tell you, many of you can probably bear witness with me. When that type of stuff happens, you really, really have to dig deep within yourself to not give up. Because at those moments, it seems like it will feel so good to just let go, let it, give it up, forget about it, and just surrender to it, But how many of you know, most of us have that fight down inside of us, and it's like, nope. I'm not going to give up this easy. And we find ourselves going another round when it feels like we can't. So here are some things that I want us to remember when we have those when life happen moments. And I've recently had to utilize these 7 things during the month of July because COVID came to my house. And as a result of COVID coming to my house, that's why I'm coughing, still trying to recover. I am a lot better now, and my husband is a lot better. And Mimi, she really didn't have a whole lot of symptoms. She had a few, maybe 2 or 3, but they were very minor. And so she could barely tell that she was positive. But and what was so interesting about the COVID situation was it happened during the month that I was scheduled to for us to discuss when life happens. I thought that was that's the scary thing that I have always experienced about speaking and presenting to folks on topics that God give me, is that it's first to the speaker. A lot of the times, and in most cases, it's to the speaker or the presenter first, and which means that we have got to be partaker of the topic. And so in July, the first part of July, we ended up living out this topic that I'm presenting to you today. And so now I'm here today, and I'm able to tell you how to navigate when life happens. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had any when life happened moments before, because I have. But this one was very, very different because Grover and I have never been sick at the same time, where we're both lying in the bed and all that, trying to see about each other. I mean, it was an experience. And so much so until you have all of what I'm going to say, these 7 points on how to navigate are some of the things that we were thinking when we were going through our When Life Happens. The first thing that I want you to remember when you're going through your When Life Happens is you've got to remember that thoughts become things. Miracle and I, we have this segment together where we have success mindset sessions, and we have this book that we read from, and one of the things that book talks about how your thoughts become things, and it's a reminder that whenever you are in your when life happens situation is to control your thoughts. Our thought life is so important, and especially when we're dealing with a when life happens, because your mind tends to run wild. It tends to run unruly. It tends to run in a pessimistic vein, so to speak. And our brain is always willing to give us what we are thinking. You know, it's a goal achieving machine, and that works for us in good ways, and it works for us in bad ways. And especially when life happens, we have got to control our thoughts. When we were sick, dealing with the COVID, one of the things that I had to keep thinking and seeing myself coming out of that, I had to speak it. I had to think it. I had to even see myself. And I remember one day I told Whitney, I said, I saw myself and I was out of this, and I was telling her what I had on, you know, and I was just telling her how I was just too sharp. You know, I saw myself coming out and just clean as sharp as a New York razor, you know. And so I was controlling my mind. I was controlling my thoughts, because thoughts become things. And a lot of times our thoughts, wherever we find ourselves, a lot of times it's because we thought ourselves there. You know, so it's important to control the mind, because those thoughts will take you there. If all you're doing is having gloom, doom, and thinking and on, you know, we had all just been thinking on the pain, the suffering, the misery, the discomfort, you know, all of that. It could, I don't know what it could have done. Maybe it could have prolonged it, or we could have went deeper. Maybe we wouldn't have recovered so well, you know, like we did. But it was, part of it was because we had a controlled thought process. Number two, and we always hear this, and people always tell us this, excuse me. And sometimes when we're in the midst of that, when life happens, we really sometimes don't want to hear this, but here it is. You will get through this. You will get through this, because now is not forever. Whatever you are going through now is not forever. When we were dealing with COVID, it was not forever. And I am here to testify and to bear witness, we got through it. So don't count out number two. I know we hear it over and over, and we get tired of hearing it, you know, especially when you're in the deep trenches of a when life happens moment, but you will get through this. You think you're in a situation that you will never escape from, you know, and I was wondering how after 14 days I'm going to get my strength back. How after 14 days I'm going to feel like getting up, walking without feeling like I'm huffing and puffing for breath, and without feeling like I was extremely exhausted and fatigued. And I'm like, how? Am I gonna, I mean, is it really gonna be gone in 14 days? That's just how bad I felt and Grover felt. You know, he was running a fever, and I'm like, is it gonna go away? Because at one point it kept seeming like it didn't want to break. But you know what? We got through it. It went away. That now we were in, then it was not forever. And we escaped. And we escaped with these 7 things that I'm sharing with you today. You know, like I said, you may think you're never going to escape, but 2 months ago, you thought you would never get past the situation you were dealing with at that time, right? 2 years ago, you were also in a situation you thought that you couldn't get past. But here we are. We're here. That's the beauty of life. If we just keep living another day and another day and another day, we will live through whatever that when life happened moments is. Here we are, though. We are alive. Praise God. We are strong. We are still going. I had to pause because I couldn't do a whole lot of things that I normally do. But to be honest, I probably needed that rest. I probably needed that break. It's not hard to let yourself only see the things that are going on right in front of you, right? It is not hard to just focus on what's going on in front of you. And then when we're dealing with those moments, we're thinking, is it possible? We think that tomorrow is impossible. But you know what? I know tomorrow is there. And I would count down the days. We all three of us will be counting down the days. And I guarantee you, if you just hold on, this too shall pass. But remember, thoughts become things. You will get through this. Number 3, you are not alone. With everything going on so hectic in our lives when we're dealing with this when life happened moments, a lot of times we may feel very distant from people. We could feel as though there's no one that could relate to our pain, but oh boy, there is. And we may feel that no one understands, but there are people out there who have survived your situation and they are willing to help you get through it. And not only that, we have friends and family, loved ones. They all care about us. That's why it's good to have an inner circle, and then you can have, all the other friends and folks that you deal with, so that in your dark moments, we know that even though some of them may be far away, in actuality, they are not very far away. We could just get on our phones and reach out to them and let them know what we're dealing with. You are not alone. When we were dealing with our situation, we had family members that were calling us, family members that were praying for us, family members who were dropping off water, because when I had COVID, the water that I normally drink, it was so terrible. I could not tolerate it. But I needed to get liquids in me, because not eating and drinking for 14 days or so, maybe 12 days or so, you become hydrated and you need water, you need some sort of liquids. And so people was bringing us water, because I couldn't tolerate the water I was drinking. But now that COVID is gone, now I can withstand the water that I normally drink. Family members was bringing care boxes to us with all kind of stuff in it. I mean, they were buying cough drop, fever medicine, albuterol pumps and masks and COVID cleaner, COVID spray, and orange juice with zinc in it. And they even had holy oil. I get tickled when I tell people that even holy oil was in there. They had bought a machine off of Amazon you could put on your nose and you put these little drops in there, and it helps to open you up. And even though Whitney, she didn't have a virus, she would come in there and pray for us. She went and got her anointed oil and prayed for us. And so it's to let you know you are not alone. People were spending their time, their money, because they loved us, and it just blessed our hearts to know people were concerned and was reaching out and calling and leaving voice messages, because I really could, it was difficult to really talk on the phone, because then I would start coughing and struggling to breathe. But the love and the outpouring of love, see, if we had not gone through that, we would have not experienced that. I mean, we know family and friends love us, but that moment when you were in that when life happened moment, it really, really, really meant a lot. And so, you are not alone. And when you get in a situation like that, just the outpouring of support and care and love, it's going to bless you. It's going to do something for you like nothing else will. You know what I'm saying? The fourth thing is there is something to be learned from your when life happens situation. I'm always saying get the lesson so we can get on out of here. Let's get the lesson real quick because I'm ready to go from this God-forsaken place. Life does not just decide to send us on this chaotic roller coaster for nothing. And that's why I'm always saying, let's get the lesson so we can get the heck out of here, because I know that there's always a lesson to be gathered and gained in it. A lot of times we go through so much hell, so much trouble, so much, obstacle. But at the end of that, when we come out, we have one powerful story to tell. Maybe you will even be able to help those that are struggling with the same things that you are dealing with, because you're stronger. You came out. And that is so true, because those that had already gone through COVID, last year, they were telling us what to do to come out of this. And that's why all these things was in this care box, because they had already gone through it like last year, I think like the earlier part of last year. So they knew what to do. And so their when life happened moments became a blessing to me and my family, because, it helped us to come on out of our when life happened moment. It helped us to come on through the COVID situation. And so remember, there's something to be learned. The next thing I want you to do is, when you are dealing with your when life happened moment, write down how life is happening for you instead of against you, because it's so easy to start thinking about all the things that are going wrong, because, when COVID happened, we were already dealing with, the problems of life anyway. And so when COVID came, it'll have you feel like, oh my God, we were already dealing with this and dealing with that. And then here this come, and you just feel like you're overwhelmed. You're like, why is this happening against me? When in reality, I started thinking on all the things that were happening for me. I started listing out the things, because sometimes that one bad thing can seem like it is so huge that it just drowns out the good things that are still happening for you. You know what I'm saying? There was still a silver lining that I could see in the midst of it. There were still some blessings and some things that I could identify that I was grateful for in the midst of it. So I encourage you to write down how life is happening for you, so that you don't become consumed and get drowned in just thinking about all the bad things that are happening. We got to bring balance to it. The sixth thing is focus on life-giving things. It's easy to think on nothing but death thoughts, and if we're not careful, we'll start even speaking death. The Bible says death and life is in the power of the tongue. And when we are in that dark place, and when, it's easy to just start, before you know it, you even said something that is death. And so focus on life-giving things. Focus on where you see yourself, how you see yourself coming out. See in your mind how it's going to be. That's what you focus on, not becoming fixated on the problem. You want to focus on the result that you desire. The seventh thing is do something productive instead of things that are pessimistic. Which when we were going through our situation, it was very few things that we could do other than sit up. We were able to watch a whole lot of movies, because our sleeping schedule got all off. We would be up 3 and 4 in the morning watching movies, and then when we would press our way on the deck to sit out in the sun, and we would just sit there, sometimes not saying anything, me and Grover, just sitting there and letting the sun hit our skin. Sometimes as we got stronger, I would, play music on my phone while we were sitting out there. And you can tell when I was a nursing student, they would always say one way you can tell when patients are starting to feel better, they start to get up and groom themselves. And my husband, he started getting up, shaving, and He was putting on his clothes, and and I knew then he was starting to feel better, and so was I. And so we were doing things productive. We would go sit outside. We would watch movies. We would be up, having popsicles and stuff. And there were still some things to laugh about. You got to kind of think on the productive things. I think one day I pressed my way to cook. I had gloves on and everything. I don't know how I did it. I know it was a struggle. And I had put that meat in the oven, but nobody wanted it. I think we ended up throwing most of it out because our appetite was so small. We just didn't want to deal with food really. But since Miracle wasn't as bad off, I was trying to, take care of her food needs. We don't want to be pessimistic. If you are able and you don't have COVID, perhaps you could get up and deep clean your house, go volunteer, do some crafting, take the kids fishing or something, versus complaining, laying around in a dark room, worrying and preparing for defeat. We are preparing for victory. Now, after all those 7 things that I just listed, does your When Life Happened profile look like that? Does it look something similar to that? If it does not, if it looks, like, oh man, I see why I was, struggling to come out and why I went in such a deep, dark place. And you see how your plan is one that keeps you bound in that situation. And we don't want to do that. We want to know how to come out. And sometimes the simplest things that seem so insignificant are yet the most powerful things that we can do. We don't want to be defeated. Yes, when life happens, it can stop things from moving at the rate that they were. Like I said, there were many things that I had to slow down on. I couldn't move at the rate that I was previously moving in. And then there were some things I straight out had to pause on because my health had become the priority. And I wanted to come out with victory. And, I understand some things about the art of war and battles and trials. I mean, I've been through too many of them, and I know how to come out. And one of the things I know is that you got to be careful in protecting your goals so that they don't suffer because you are encountering when life happens. So in closing, bad things do happen sometimes. It's part of being human, and it's a part of learning life lessons. It's not always about stuff. It's more about the gift behind it. And now that we are on the other side, we see the gifts that was wrapped up in what looked like a terrible situation that we wanted to escape. Because, there are people who did not make it through COVID. And when you are dealing with COVID, that thought does come across your mind because you don't know, fully how your body is going to react to it. But there were so many beautiful things that happened in the midst of it. The family love in our direct home, and just the family love outside of our home that we felt, from family and friends. And when we can shift our minds to believe in all things happen for a reason, it changes our reaction. Looking back now, I see some of the reasons. And first of all, one of them I told you is that it was the topic for our July meetup, and I ended up having to live it out. Not knowing that when I came up with this topic that this was going to happen. But now I am a different person. I am not the same person I was. Right now, I'm not the same person I was in July. And you know what? You are not going to be the same person you are right now when you come out of your when life happens moments. You're going to be even more anointed and powerful to help others come through successfully. Wherever you find yourself, know this: you are not alone. You know that you are not being punished or singled out. Because a lot of times people try to say, oh, people being punished for something. sometimes you are growing. We're having a growth experience in our life. And so don't be discouraged. Don't be all shy and timid, because I know a lot of people are afraid to let people know they have COVID. And I understand why. But at the same time, sometimes you got to tell your story, because if you don't, how are you going to be a blessing to other people? If those folks who had already went through COVID in the family had not shared it, we wouldn't have known. And then, they wouldn't have been probably comfortable to come to us and tell us that they had experience and what they did to come out really quickly. So that is my time for today. It looks like I'm at 35 minutes. I'm not going to prolong this very much. I just want you to be encouraged, pivot if you have to, adjust if you have to. But what I don't want you to do is to quit. Pause if you have to. Even if COVID comes to your house, you have a when life happened moment with COVID, you can still come through that successfully with your goals. And so, thankfully I had systems in place to kind of help me pick right back up and get back to business on some things that needed to take place. And you will too. You will come through whatever it is you're dealing with. I don't know what you're dealing with, but I can tell you this: you will come out if you follow these 7 steps. Follow these 7 tips of navigating successfully when life happens. All right, that's my time. Remember to invite folks to the group. Like, comment, share on this post. Tell me about if you've had a when life happens situation, and if you can relate to some of the things I've said in today's topic for the month of July. All right, talk to you guys later. Keep on going.